The following conversation is with Craig Bowerson. Craig is the chef at the Birches Resort in Rockwood, Maine. The Birches are a collection of log cabins in northern Maine. They were built in the 1930s on the shore of Moosehead Lake by a local logging contractor. In addition to the cabins, there is a full dining room and bar in the main lodge, which serves as a refuge for sightseers and hunters alike. Craig has many years of experience in contract food service, as well as curating and cooking the menus in nursing homes. He also runs marathons and fuels his long runs with honey from bees that he raises in his own apiary. I will note, I forgot to mic us up at the start of this episode. The audio improves at the 2-minute and 13-second mark. Without further ado, here is Craig Bowerson. Well, hello, Craig. Thank you for doing this.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. I know it's kind of short notice and everything. So I just wanted to start it off with, who are you? Tell me a little bit about yourself.
My name is Craig Bowerson. I'm the kind of new interim chef here at the Birches. I'm just coming from Kansas. I was working as a chef at a nursing home for the last probably about 3-4 years now. Prior to that, I just moved all over. I did contract food service. Started off in restaurants, and I was apprenticed with the American Culinary Federation in Sarasota for about 3.5 years. And then after my apprenticeship was up, just started traveling around trying to learn as much as I could. So
Nice. So we're at the Birches in Maine, for people that don't know, which is just like a cabin resort sitting right on Moosehead Lake and got the North Bay right there. So can you tell me a little bit about the history of the Birches, or what you know? And if you don't know, that's okay.
what I know about the Birches is it was built in the 1920s. I don't remember the name of the original owners, but John and Tanya Willard are the current owners. John's parents had bought the Birches, I believe, in the 1930s and started building these cabins as you see them now. Some of them are what his father actually built originally, so they haven't really been changed or updated a whole lot, just enough that you could winterize it. After that, John kind of ventured out and started doing other wilderness things. They used to have a rafting adventure here. They have Jeep tours that they still do. We still do boating tours, take you out on some of the islands and things like that. But it's really just to experience Maine the way everybody thinks it should be, nature. So
Yeah, and we were here last year because me and my dad come up here hunting. We hunt grouse. And we stayed in like the big house that was over there because we had more of our family coming. This year it's just us, just the two of us. But I don't know if you guys can hear it, but oh shit, I forgot to put the mics on. Hold on, we're going to pause and put the mics on. I just stopped it and started again because just in case the audio wasn't getting picked up.
No problem.
But anyway, yeah, so we've been coming here. We came here last year and we really liked it. And that's how I realized we weren't doing the mics, is because I was going to say, I don't know if you guys can hear it, and that made me think of the audio, but we're literally 20 feet from Moosehead Lake. I can hear the waves right now. It's pretty stupendous. And I think that's a great way to experience Maine. Like you said, it's a beautiful state. And a lot of times people just go to Portland or Augusta, and then they kind of just stop there and they're like, oh, this is Maine. But I've been coming up to Jackman and Greenville since I was a kid, because I would always go with my dad when he would hunt. I wouldn't really hunt when I was a kid. But it's a beautiful state up here. There's not a ton of people once you kind of get past the last couple towns, but it's still a great part of the state. It's beautiful. And especially right now, the leaves turning, it's just magical.
Definitely.
Yeah.
The first time I came up here was about 6 years ago. My wife and I came up for a summer. I was working as a chef at McPherson College in McPherson, Kansas. I don't know if you've ever worked food service contract, but in summertime, most colleges close down. So you get that vacation time, especially that and Christmas. So we ended up coming for about 6 weeks in the summer while the college was closed down. And ended up working here, fell in love with the area, and just anything we could do to come back to the area is what we pretty much have done. So we saved up for about 6 years and finally came back up here. So
Nice. What was your experience at the nursing home like, and also the Culinary Federation that you mentioned?
Ooh. So when I get into the nursing home a little bit, I'll probably get a little emotional. I had a very close relationship with a lot of my residents. So I'll kind of cut back to when I was younger. Um, the senior year I was in high school, we got offered the opportunity, instead of taking just regular electives, we could go through the vocational school. I lived in Port Charlotte, Florida at the time, and ended up going to Charlotte Votech and attending the culinary arts program. It was taught by a chef who had graduated from CIA in, I can't remember what year, but they were still located in Connecticut at the time.
Oh,
So,
wow, way back. Yeah.
he was way back graduate.
I went to the CIA as well, to the Hyde Park campus.
Okay.
But they had moved at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, he was one of the last graduating classes before they went to Hyde Park. He was an exceptional teacher. He had started a consulting firm for food service after he had graduated CIA, and then also some kind of, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it ended up selling cookbooks that just were industrial. You could pull out a recipe for chicken Florentine. It would tell you how to cook it for 300 people and all the little quirks in there. So we ended up learning with him for my senior year of high school, and then ended up enrolling in the American Culinary Federation apprenticeship program. I went through the Sarasota chapter, and my instructor was Stephen Hodges, also a CIA grad. My main chef that I worked under was Kum Kampapa at Palm Island Resort. He was also a CIA grad, so I was surrounded by CIA grads pretty much most of my beginning career. I did the apprenticeship for about 3.5 years and moved out to Colorado. When I got to Colorado, the only place that offered apprenticeship was the Broadmoor Hotel, and they told me, you're going to start over. Like, we're not letting you. You're going to have to start in Garmager all over again. And I said, screw that.
Yeah.
And so I ended up just kind of venturing out and learning on my own at that point, and eventually just ended up getting into food service contracts. It was much later in my career, but it was probably one of the first chef opportunities I had. Was they needed a chef to run a cafe at a contract building. I wasn't exactly sure what it was, but that was the first time I was introduced to contract food service.
Yeah, I've never actually done contract food service. I've always kind of just been like a line cook or a sous chef that was on salary. Have you ever done the other side, or have you really just done contract your entire career?
I've done some restaurant. Most of the time I was sous chef underneath that. Coming into the food service contract, being in Kansas, there wasn't a whole lot of restaurants that had chef or sous chef positions, but a lot of the Sodexo, Compass Foods, all the Aramark, tried to bring in chefs into that area and just use us to kind of enhance the food service that they were offering, even to college students. It was one thing that I really enjoyed, was actually being able to take minor techniques or some of the things I used to do with my students as I would teach them. So we used to do college courses, or they weren't courses, but college classes, where I'd open up the kitchen at night and I would teach people how to cook eggs, or this is how we boil pasta. This is the basic way to peel potatoes. And I ended up getting pretty good rapport with students with that, but it also opened up the door to some of the other things I used to do at nursing homes. And that was, I had a lot of students that were homesick. And so they would say, hey, I really wish eating my mom's food. I appreciate what you're trying to do for us here. But so I started reaching out to parents and saying, hey, can I get your recipes? These dishes that your kids want, like, I'd love to cook it for them, but, I need to know how you do it. So I actually started collecting recipes from kids' mothers and cooking like food that they cook for their kids.
Wow.
And we're just reproducing that. That's where I kind of took some ideas when I got into nursing homes, and this is probably where I'll get a little emotional. So
that's all right. No worries. You don't have to apologize for anything.
If you were to go on my Instagram, one of my first residents that I actually developed a relationship with, he had started slipping into dementia really bad.
Sorry.
Take as much time as you need.
And hang on one sec. I apologize.
No worries.
I text my kids every day at the same time, just to let them know I love them. So you just happened to catch me right there. But Bill started. My resident had started to regress in his memory back to his childhood, and one of the memories that he had was his father was a chef at a restaurant outside of Chicago in a town called Winnetka, and I got a little curious by listening to him tell stories about his dad, so I ended up calling the Chamber of Commerce, who tracked down a menu from his dad's restaurant in 1930.
Whoa.
And so I ended up getting a hold of his family and saying, hey, I got a hold of some of your great-grandfather's menus. Do you have any of his recipes? And so they gave me some of his recipes.
It's all right. Take your time.
And we actually turned the dining room into the Winnetka Cafe. And
Wow.
so for the day, we ended up cooking his dad's menus. And so they brought his family in. One of the things that he used to tell us was his dad was called the Big Noise from Winnetka, which is actually a song written in the 1930s. He said it was a song was written about my dad. And we found a recording, we're not 100% sure, where it actually is dedicated to his father. So the big band member comes on and says, this is for you, Andy. And so we had another big band come into the nursing home and do the same song. They said, hey, this is for you, Andy, for you, Bill.
Whoa. You're giving me chills. That's just incredible. And I completely relate. My grandmother had Alzheimer's. That's how she passed away over the course of nine and a half years. It's heavy, that stuff. I completely understand. But what an incredible thing that you did. That's like hospitality at the highest, going above and beyond hospitality. That's like giving someone something that they, need. That's incredible.
It was right at the beginning of COVID, so we hadn't really got into all the restrictions and everything, but we ended up getting into the lockdown, and I ended up moving from that nursing home to a larger nursing home. So I went from 24 residents to 120 residents. And I'm sitting in a resident council with all my residents one day and just listening to them. I don't know if you've ever gotten feedback from your customers, but grandmas are the best. So I'm in a nursing home. I'm listening to 100 grandmas just tell me how much they hate the food. And they don't like the menus. They can't pronounce half the stuff. And at the time, again, it was a food service contract. I don't want to call people out, but when that corporate office is trying to push that, hey, this is the menu that we have, and they're trying to show off, and but it's not what any of the residents wanted.
Yeah.
So as I'm listening to these ladies complain, I start kind of like realizing you guys ran your house. You cooked all your foods. You took care of your families, and you're kind of being taken away from that.
Yeah.
And so I started a program at the nursing home where we would get resident recipes. Just, hey, how did you make spaghetti? How did you make lasagna? How did you make your chicken cordon bleu? How did you, whatever it was. And we started going through the menu, and I ended up recreating a menu just based off of what my residents wanted.
That's just beautiful.
And in the nursing home, you're always trying to save a buck. What can you do to keep your bottom line down? And so as you're pulling all these old recipes from the 1920s, 1930s, I've had residents give me index cards that their mother had written like in the 1920s. And these are all my mom's recipes. Find one that you like. This is what my mom used to cook for me. I cook this for my family. So we ended up incorporating all of our resident recipes into our menu to where we were actually reproducing all the family recipes. And my complaints went from almost 75% complaints to almost no complaints whatsoever.
That is incredible. I've actually never heard of a chef doing that, because you're right, it's all about the bottom line. So it's so easy to just cut corners and do what's cheapest or easiest, or like you said, like for, try to do something that's a little bit more cool or flashy. But I think at a nursing home, I can't think of a better way to put together a menu for a nursing home than the residents' old recipes. What a beautiful thing that you did. That is really, really incredible. Where do you think that came from in you? Like, because obviously you have a love of food and you understand the nostalgia at a deep level of food. So where do you think that came from in your life?
I think it originally started with my grandmother. She's the one who actually taught me how to cook. I was kind of an odd kid, so I didn't really have a whole lot of friends. But for some reason, food always just kind of made sense to me. I'm trying to think. I'd almost want to say that I think about food almost like you would hear Scoffier talk about food. It's almost every waking moment. And so for me, I think I heard it best put in the movie called Burnt. I don't know if you've seen that.
I have.
But he describes what is feeding somebody, and it's the ultimate expression of love. And so to me, cooking for my residents was giving back to my grandmother, who had originally taught me how to cook.
It's beautiful, man. Take your time. Don't worry. Making me get choked up too. What a beautiful thing. I was always a little sad and jealous of people who got to like learn how to cook from their grandparents, because I had my French grandmother and she would cook all the time for us, and she spoke French and all this, and I love food my whole life, but I didn't know I wanted to cook like this until I was probably like 21, and she had already passed, so I never really got that chance with her. I have my parents are divorced, all remarried, so I have plenty of grandparents to go around, but never really got that chance with mine. So I'm happy that you did, and you kind of took that extra step to share it with others, especially at the nursing home. And like, it's very selfless of you, as well, because a lot of chefs just want to, I'm guilty of this for sure, just want to like create, make dope food, chase the trends, do all this, caviar, foie gras, what have you. But to kind of just put yourself and your career towards, making the end of those people's lives special through food is just, wow. Brilliant.
Yeah, it was something to see a resident who was absolutely miserable most of the time actually come down with a camera, set it up on the table, and show their family, hey, my name's on the menu. Here's the dishes that we used to eat together.
Wow. I know I said this before, but that's just like hospitality times 10. Like, that's wow. Do you still, working here now, I know this isn't a nursing home, but do you still have that same kind of feeling? You want to put that same...
I actually still consult with the nursing home. After I left, they asked me, hey, can you still talk with our staff? I do plan on going back while we're closed, because the restaurant here does close for about 2 months, October till the end of December. So I do plan on going back, seeing my residents, cooking for them again. So
that's awesome.
Definitely.
I think more chefs and people who work, particularly in nursing home care, should take notes on what you've done, because I think that's just, just the just amazing. Really, I know I keep saying it, but I didn't expect that coming into this at all. But yeah, definitely made me a little choked up there. Rightfully so. Whew. Man, that was beautiful, man. Hold on, I'm just looking at my questions. I feel like they all got blown out of the water by this beautiful thing. So it's like, well, let's just move into running a kitchen that's kind of in the backwoods of Maine a little bit. What are some of the challenges that come along with that?
Some of the challenges basically is getting what you're trying to get up here. Even with Cisco and other food purveyors that you would have up here, the availability is not as open as you think it would be here. Unfortunately, I'm not exactly sure why, but it seems like even though I'm closer to the coast here, my seafood costs more than it did when I was in Kansas. And so I used to be able to order in different types of food for special events in Kansas that was cheaper than I could actually pay here now. And so that's been a little bit of a challenge, is just learning how the systems work here compared to in contracts versus where my menu is the same. It doesn't change. I know exactly how much is going out every single day. I know how much I'm making. There isn't a question of how many covers I have tonight or how low the reservations or anything like that. So
yeah, it must be tough kind of being here, because I know you guys are closed on Mondays, and then I mean, like, what's business like on like Tuesdays and Wednesdays? It must be pretty tough, because I mean, again, for people that don't know, we're here at the Birches. This is, I mean, you got to drive on a dirt road for 10 minutes to get here, and even then we're in like upstate Maine, so we're pretty away from most civilization. We're close to Jackman, Greenville. Greenville's probably the biggest town near here, I'd say.
Yes. Bangor's 2 hours away.
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty up there. So before I even started doing this podcast, when we were here last year and we went to the restaurant, we got there, it was freezing, and we had the French onion soup, and we were sitting by the fire. That was, I mean, it might have just been because I was hungry and we were sitting by a fire, but that was the best French onion soup I ever had in my entire life. And I just immediately was like, I can't believe there's like this good of a kitchen up here in the backwoods of Maine. And I just started thinking, like, it's not why I started this podcast, but it was one of the original thoughts where I was like, I wonder what it takes to run it up here. And it's kind of crazy that we're 20 feet from the water and the seafood is more expensive than it was in Kansas. Is there any way you can like connect with fishermen around here?
I know there are quite a few fishermen that come up in the area. It wasn't something that the restaurant was originally working towards, but I have been trying to bring in different fresh fish. This last season, I had hake in here for a little while, so we were doing pan-fried hake for a little bit. I brought in some little neck clams, and we were doing clams linguine. I'm trying to get the staff to venture out a little bit more and not maybe bake salmon so much, but try to grill it or even blacken it. So we're working on that.
Nice. That's good. I know it can be hard to like kind of, coming in as a chef, like implementing new things for sure. But I was going to say, if you could get some trout or something like from up here, I mean, that would be next level, because it's right here, like everybody comes up here to go trout fishing and go hunting. Do you do any hunting or fishing yourself?
I'd like to. I haven't yet. I have to try to plan out, like we close down the next 2 weeks, so hopefully after that I'll be able to go out and get my first deer this year. So
nice. I actually just got my first. I went hunting last year, and I've gone with my dad for many years, but last year was really my first time trying. And then today I actually just got my first grouse ever my entire life, which was pretty epic. I have wanted to do that my whole life, but I can't say I wasn't like, woohoo, it's definitely like more bitter than sweet for sure, because it's, you're taking an animal's life. But I'm kind of under the impression that it's, if you, being a chef is weird, or a cook, I should say, because you're constantly serving like dead animals to people,
Yeah.
basically. And I think that there's just become like this crazy separation from animal to plate.
Mhm.
And that's kind of why I'm going down this path of pursuing hunting. And I have a bow and I'm working up to deer, but I thought I'd start with bird because my dad he's been doing it for 26 years. So I've just thought I'd start there and work my way up. But do you kind of agree that chefs should hunt more and kind of be closer to that process?
I really think that for myself, I don't know if I could speak for other chefs, but for myself, I'd much rather know where my ingredients coming from. It's one of the reasons, which is why I was asking if you wanted to go somewhere else. I started raising bees. I actually keep bees up a couple miles from here.
Really?
Because just like every chef I've ever heard, you're in the pursuit of the perfect dish. What can I do to make this dish perfect? But I wanted to try to perfect an ingredient or see what I could do to manipulate that ingredient without actually cooking it or anything else. So how could I change the environment or what the bees were eating or dealing with to see how I could make the ingredient better?
What goes into having is apiary the right word?
Apiary,
Yeah,
yes.
what goes into having an apiary?
Just patience, having enough, being almost like a constant student because bees think for themselves. So you have to kind of pay attention to what they're doing, stay on top of them. You have to be able to recognize if they're going to try to swarm, which is a common thing. Basically just have to keep them happy so that way they stay in their box.
Yeah, I guess don't really want them to get out of the box. That's so cool. There was an apiary at school at the CIA. I never, like, some students were part of that like little club where they would do that, but I never got into it. That's really cool. Are there a lot of farms around here?
Not in this area. If you go a little farther south, there's a little bit more farmland, but up here, the main reason why I picked up here to raise my bees was there was no agricultural influence around. Most of my colonies in Kansas got wiped out by pesticides.
Really?
When they would come through and spray their fields, it would just wipe out my entire colony. And there's ways around where you can register your hives with the USDA, and then they report them to the farms, and then the farms have to let you know before they spray so you can move bees. But I never ended up registering any of my hives down in Kansas. So I ended up losing all of them just to pesticides. So
That's frustrating.
when I came up here, so far I've made it through. My hives have ended up being healthier than anybody else's that I've worked with up here. I didn't really produce a whole lot of honey this year, but I also started them later than I should have. So
When should you start them?
I should have started them back in April, and I didn't get them until June. So I was about 2.5 months late.
What's like the lifespan of a bee?
A regular bee, I think, is only like 30 days. Queen can live a little bit longer than that. I think she can live up to a year. But most bees, their lifespan is not very long. So wintertime, they'll almost go into a hibernation state. I just moved all the hives onto like a platform so that I can pack them in snow once it starts snowing and kind of use it as an insulator and hopefully keep them alive. They'll keep the inside of the hive around between 70 and 90, depending on how big the hive is. And as long as I keep them fed, they should hopefully make it through the winter.
What do you feed them?
It's almost like a fondant, rolled fondant. It's a little less liquid than what you would normally put in like a fondant icing, but basically just a rolled fondant that you put in there.
Well, that's kind of cool.
Oh yeah.
I know nothing about raising bees at all. That's why I'm asking all these questions. I'm curious.
I got into it mainly. I say about 3 years ago, I had a terrible health scare, and I used to weigh almost 300 pounds. I was about 270 pounds.
Oh wow!
And
I wouldn't know looking at you. You look like you're in great shape.
Started having terrible health issues, and so I actually started running and signed up for my first marathon. And after that, just kind of kept doing it. And now I've done 2 50-mile races. I do 50K races at least twice a year. And I'm trying to qualify for Boston this year. But I just completely reversed most of the health issues I had just living that terrible lifestyle as a chef that was out drinking and smoking cigarettes and not taking care of myself and eating like crap.
Yeah. Are you sober now?
100% sober. I live in a medical marijuana state, so if I have the opportunity, I do partake. But for the most part, I don't drink. Don't take in sugar. I drink about a gallon and a half of water a day. Try to make sure I'm on a carnivore diet, actually.
Oh, nice.
Which is kind of annoying because I really enjoy food, but at the same time, you do what I do.
I'm doing gluten-free right now, and it's a challenge because at work I'm like the pasta guy. Like I'm constantly just extruding pasta or making agnolotti or something, and I taste the sauces constantly, but I can't actually eat it.
I originally wanted to be a pastry chef, and so baking's my jam.
Cool.
And now I can't eat bread. I can't. So very similar situation.
Yeah, frustrating. I want to go back to you being sober because I've talked to a few people. This episode isn't out yet at this time, but I did one with this guy, Justin Cruz, who reached out to me, and he lives local to where I live, which is like New Bedford, like on the South Coast, Massachusetts. And he was telling me kind of his struggle and process. He had a big thing with cocaine and pills and all this stuff. So how did you kind of come around? Like, what were you doing, and how did you stop?
Ooh. I think my biggest issue was once I got out of venue management. I worked for a company called Oakview Group, which is a subsidiary of Universal NBC. So we did concerts. So I used to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'd have to set up a breakfast buffet for Rascal Flatts. So I'm hanging out with Rascal Flatts at 3 o'clock in the morning in their pajamas, cooking breakfast for them. And
that's pretty sweet.
They're getting ready for a concert. And so I'm setting that up. I'm doing the backstage venue, and you have to do stuff to make sure that you stay awake and cognizant of what's going on. So you end up doing what you need to do to stay awake for 16, 18 hours, go home, try to sleep for 4 or 5 hours and come back and do it again, either cleaning up or doing another event. And then on those off days when you're trying to chill out and relax, you start drinking. And it got to a point where the alcohol got a little excessive. I'm not going to say it was like terrible all the time, but at the same time, trying to go back to back, working 6 days a week and sleeping 3-4 hours a night, getting drunk again the next night. It was just not very conducive to having a great relationship with my wife at the time, dealing with my kids. And I had gone through a terrible divorce and really didn't have a great relationship with my children at the time. And I had my youngest daughter, who she was kind of talking to me, but again, I was disconnected from things. And then when I realized, hey, you have an opportunity to really strengthen your relationship with your kid. The other daughter, my other daughter was, I'm trying to think how much older she is. She's about 9 years older. And she had come to live with me, or come live by me. And she said, hey, how come you weren't here for this? How come you never showed up? You weren't here for these things. And I said, well, one, yeah, I was a terrible dad. I'm not going to lie. Two, I didn't know anything about him because your mother didn't tell me about him. You didn't tell me about him. Like, there was no communication. Mm-hmm. And three, I probably couldn't have made it anyway because I wasn't in my right mind. So that ended up giving me a wake up call to where it was like, look, I need to either be healthy and take care of myself, or stop trying to pull my family together and like make them suffer through things. So I ended up quit drinking, and I had to give my wife an ultimatum. Basically was, you need to quit drinking too, or else we just can't do this anymore. And so we ended up both becoming sober. So
wow, beautiful. So it's kind of your kids and your family bringing it back together that kind of made you have that moment of realization. Nice. Wow. I like doing this podcast because I get to meet extraordinary people like you. It's pretty good. Give yourself some credit. I mean, most people don't pull it together, especially most chefs.
Yeah.
I know a lot of chefs that have kids and they aren't pulling it together, you know? So it's really, really amazing, especially the running too. Going from, you know, kind of having a drinking problem and being, you know, 270, that's pretty big. And then now, you know, trying to qualify for the Boston Marathon, that's what a turnaround. I love stories like that and just hearing that it can be done, you know?
Oh yeah.
And I think it's kind of why I try to talk about it. I know it's not super comfortable, so I appreciate you sharing. But it's because there's a lot of cooks and chefs that watch this, and I just like want them to know, like, I smoke and drink, and you know, not in excess, but I think that it's good for them to hear that it's like possible. Because I think for sometimes, especially Justin was telling me, he kind of was like, why am I even going to try to get better? It seems impossible. I just want people to know that it is possible. Mm-hmm. Like even for a chef who's like, you know, busting your ass, and it's hard. It never gets easy. Like being a chef is tough.
Oh yeah.
But being able to kind of trade that like unhealthy lifestyle for a more healthy lifestyle is you can do it. Like people do it. Mm-hmm. Like you, Exhibit A. So yeah, what else did you say there? You said you originally wanted to bake.
Yes.
Where did that kind of passion for baking come from? And also just like tell me what you like to bake.
I think the passion for baking came because the first time I made bread, it came out. And it's one of those, wow, like I can't believe I made bread. I just mixed together these ingredients and made bread. And then I started getting into different types of bread, the ciabatta breads, or making a biga, or French breads, Italian breads, different types of Middle Eastern breads, and just learning, wow, there's so many different ways of mixing this same couple of ingredients and coming up with something completely different every single time. And then I just absolutely got fascinated with just the different textures, and basically bread was my whole thing. I ended up working for a short period of time at a grocer called Publix. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
I've heard of Publix, yeah.
They're probably one of the only grocery stores that I know of that still mixes bread from flour.
I didn't know that they did that.
They mix their bread from flour. Most of their stuff is made in-house. Cakes they bring in, but all their frostings, like I've memorized their frosting recipe. I've actually stolen it. Sorry. And I use it whenever I tell somebody that is from Florida, hey, I'm baking a cake and I'm using Publix frosting. Oh, really? So I just absolutely loved baking, and just having something turn out that, I don't know, I couldn't explain, but it just made sense to me. It's one of those things where it made sense to me, and I can't explain why, but it's just sitting around thinking. I remember, I'm trying to think the last time I actually had a conversation with the chef. We talked about waffles, and he started talking to me about, he was making a caramelized onion pecan waffle. And when he started talking about it, I was like, oh man, that sounds so good. And other people are like, it's a waffle. I'm like, no, the caramelized onion and those pecans are just going to change that whole.
Oh yeah.
And that's when I realized, okay, maybe I have a little something different in my head
yeah,
than other people. And that was like, that's it. Just bread makes sense to me. Baking makes sense to me. So
nice. I also love what you said earlier about when we were talking about the apiary, and you said you kind of like trying to perfect an ingredient. Mm-hmm. This kind of relates to bread too because of fermentation. But I love fermenting things. It's kind of like that's like my bread. I also love baking bread, but fermenting is like the first kitchen I ever worked in was a Scandinavian restaurant. They did a lot of pickling, a lot of lacto fermenting, a lot of koji. I mean, you name it. We were doing it. Blackened vegetables, all this stuff. And I just found it I was kind of drawn to it the same way you were drawn to baking. And it was always kind of like, there's this sounds super weird, but you're kind of like raising bacteria, like you're kind of
Oh, yeah.
birthing them almost. Like, I mean, they don't come from you, but you're cultivating them. And that was kind of what,
Like a sourdough.
exactly. That's where it relates to baking. And I just thought that was like the coolest shit ever.
I find it very interesting. I ended up having, I don't remember who I was talking to about this, but when you take ingredients like a garlic confit, if you're making a dish and you don't have the confit and you just substitute garlic, it just doesn't taste the same because it doesn't have that process where it fermented in the salt or, cured itself.
Mhm.
And so I think that those things are very important. One of my favorites is like a cured egg yolk.
Oh yeah.
And just over
Over pasta,
Over pasta.
or yeah. No, I love that. We did a dish where I work now. I work at Little Moss in South Dartmouth. It's like a small bistro, farm to table place owned by the Lofbergs. Lisa Lofberg is the head chef. We got, I mean, everything we get in like spring and summer is from. There's a lot of farms in Dartmouth, like really like micro farms. But we got some asparagus, and my friend Fook made like a cheese kind of, I don't want to say foam because I'm not really on board with the foams. I don't love that as a texture, but it came out of an ISI. It was kind of like had the texture of like a Sauvignon a little bit, like just kind of rich and like airy. And we served the asparagus with that on the just asparagus, cheese, lemon, and then egg yolk, the cured egg yolk to finish. And that dish was banging. Love that. But other than baking, do you like ferment stuff?
I just actually started getting into fermenting. So it's something that I've wanted to do more of. I especially like to, well, one thing I love to do is pickle fruit.
Oh yeah.
So I wanted to start doing fermented fruit, especially up here when you have the blueberries and the strawberries. I haven't gone out and picked enough yet, but that's something I would like to actually get into is fermenting fruit.
I've never pickled a fruit, but I've done a lot of lacto fermenting fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Like peaches was the first one I ever did, and like actually incorporated into like a plate. It's so fun. I just like how it goes from like something sweet to something kind of savory and sweet and tart, and you take an ingredient that's like one note and you give it like complexity just through these like tiny little life forms that you're like kind of cultivating. Like it's just the coolest thing. I'm also blackening some apples right now, which is cool. That one, I feel like it's a weird process because it takes like a month or like a month and a half. And I just put them in a rice cooker and then hit keep warm, like wrap them. I'm doing apples right now, but I've done garlic and sunchokes. Can really do anything that's kind of got that like white flesh. Can do onions, shallots. You don't even need salt for that one. Like you just wrap it, tin foil, put it in a rice cooker, close it, hit keep warm, forget about it for a month. And then it just turns black and kind of turns into a paste almost.
Mm-hmm.
That's like super cool. We did a like a vegan demi-glaze at one point,
Okay.
which with the blackened sunchokes. And that was like super cool. But they kind of get this like, because it's just, it's a Korean technique originally.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets, I mean, the Maillard reaction, caramelizing steaks or whatever, that brown bit, it's just that slowly throughout the entire thing, not just the outside. So when you like get a black garlic clove, you can literally like go like that and it's like a paste.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just delicious, that whole process. I highly recommend the Noma Fermentation Guide is a great starting place for fermenting, that book. That's where I started, because they not only like kind of tell you how to do something, but before they give you the recipes and like the ratios and hey, this is how you do it, they tell you like what bacteria you're cultivating, why it's happening, how it's happening, the proper temperature, how to not kill someone with botulism, like, like all these things. And the science behind it is kind of what originally attracted me to it, because it's just a little bit like more. You reminded me of that book because you said blueberries, and we're in Maine, and I whenever I come to Maine, I think of blueberries. And I think they do lacto blueberries in that book.
Okay.
Which is great, because lacto fermenting too is super easy to start with, because you just take it and then it's 2% salt and that's it. And then like within a week, between 5 and 7 days, is when it's usually done. But yeah, blueberries would be amazing for sure. Banging.
I did a vegan wedding a couple years ago, and I just pickled a whole bunch of vegetables and fruit, and they thought that was unique. They'd never had it before, but they ended up kind of going nuts for the strawberries. So,
Ooh, strawberries. Yeah.
they were like, I've never had a pickled strawberry, and this is just
I'm going to have to try that because we get strawberries in, and they're so good by themselves. We usually just serve them fresh, but definitely going to have to pickle some next year because giving me ideas. That sounds really good. Let's see what else I got here. I guess we can just move to these last couple 3 here. So if you had one piece of advice to share with like young cooks or someone who potentially wanted to start cooking professionally, what would that one piece of advice be?
learn patience. The one issue I've had, especially with a lot of people that have worked for me lately, is they have no patience. They want things to get done quickly, and that's one of those things that actually took me a long time to just slow down and just be patient with things. Realize that there's a process, especially in a recipe. One of the biggest issues I've had, especially people just using thickeners in soup, is that they don't slow down. They don't wait for that roux to go ahead and kick in and initiate, and they don't let it cook for a couple minutes, and all of a sudden they're adding more roux because it's not getting thickened fast enough, and now they have a brick of soup, and they're like, hey, how do I fix this? You don't add so much roux, man. Like,
Yeah.
so patience is a big thing. I really used to rush through food a lot, and I didn't realize how much that resting period or just letting things sit sometimes helps the whole dish and helps to kind of make things work a little better for you.
I love that. It's funny you say roux, because so my mom making chicken piccata was my favorite dish growing up. She'd make it all the time, and she would put roux in her sauce, which I know isn't traditional, but so it kind of became like a lemony chicken gravy almost with the chicken. And I was making it for my whole family one time. This is like right after I was like, I'm going to go to culinary school like this. I just like decided, didn't really know what I was doing yet. But that was like the one thing I would cook at home sometimes. And I made it for my whole family. And I added so much roux. It was like slop. Like, I mean, it was thick, super thick chicken piccata. It really became like almost beyond a stew. Like we were just eating basically like a super thick lemon gravy. And it was, I mean, it was good, but it wasn't chicken piccata by any means, you know? What are your top 3 cookbooks of all time?
Top 3 cookbooks.
And you can take your time and think, because people usually struggle with this one.
No. Le Guide, Cuisine, Escoffier. What's that one? Marco Pierre White, White Heat.
That's my goat right there. That's my favorite chef.
And then, well, I like Marco way more than I like his apprentice.
Gordon.
Yeah. And the last one would be The French Laundry, Thomas Keller. Probably one of the few chefs that I really enjoy what he does. I really enjoy what he says. And just reading some of his life stories sometimes, I'm like, wow, that's pretty incredible. Especially considering he was one of the chefs that never really, he did go to France, but he's like, I learned everything I already needed to learn. Like, I went to France and didn't feel like I'd learned anything. So when he came back to the US, he just refined himself at that point. So
yeah,
it wasn't Paris that made him, it was his own drive and his own.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably the greatest American chef of all time.
Yeah.
That's a solid list. That's a solid list right there. And that was quick too. I asked not the last one, but the one before the last one I recorded was with David Tanis. He's a food writer. We did a cookbook dinner with him. And because he's written, I think, 3 cookbooks. He did Market Cooking, something about an artichoke, maybe The Heart of an Artichoke.
Mm-hmm.
And then his most famous one is A Platter of Figs, which I highly recommend. I'm reading it right now because I actually hadn't read any of his books before I met him, but he did the podcast. And I asked him about the cookbooks, and he took a very long pause to the point where when we were done, he was like, "You're going to edit that out." And I was like, "Okay, like a deal," because And everybody I've asked that question to really, kind of takes a couple minutes to just like sit and think. But you were like, bang, got those.
Yeah, my apartment's not far from here, but I have a chair, and right next to my chair is my bookshelf, and all my cookbooks are there. Like honorable mentions would be Fernand Lapointe, my Gastronomique. I'm trying to think, the Larousse Guide to Culinary, and then one of my favorite cookbook editions, if you ever get the opportunity, is the Time Life series that they came out in the 60s and 70s. They just go through every food culture you could think of, and they go through the history of the food culture, the history of the areas, the history of how they used to do things and why they used to do things. And it's probably, for a no-name author, when it came to the cookbooks, it's probably one of my favorite that I ever learned anything from, and I still take from now. So
Yeah, I'll definitely. I've never heard of. I think your honorable mentions. I've never heard of any of them, so I'll definitely look at those. I'll watch this back and check those out because I'm always looking for more. If we were, I record at home sometimes, and I have like a giant stack of cookbooks like in the background of most of the podcasts. But yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I'm really bad at reading. I've always read below the reading level I was supposed to be at when I was in school. So I mean, I've been reading Kitchen Confidential for almost 2 years now. I'm just so slow, and I also don't make time. I just don't. I work a lot. I mean, you get that, working in kitchens. I work a lot. When I'm not working, I just want to lay in bed or be with my fiance or what have you. In reading, I always just kind of push to the back burner, but I'll definitely check all of those out because those sound really good. What's your favorite, the French Laundry and White Heat? What are your favorite recipes in those two books? Because those are definitely two of my top two. So I'm curious what you like in those.
And White Heat
doesn't even necessarily have to be a recipe. Just like, what's your favorite part of those books?
I don't know, the French Laundry. I think what really interested me in that was, you were talking about reading. I get quite bored, and I actually read autobiographies and memoirs. Most of them were chefs, so Kitchen Confidential is one. Grant, I can't remember what his last name is. He runs a
Grant Achatz.
Yeah. I read his life story, so just going in through some of that. When he talks about Keller, he mentions that the one thing Keller does, and he actually talks about it quite a bit in the French Laundry cookbook, is cooking what they call grossies. Organ meat or different things like that. And the idea of cooking, even though it's not readily available, it's not something I'm probably ever going to serve here, because I can't imagine the clientele wanting to come here and eat
offal or sweetbreads,
trotters or sweetbreads or anything like that. So just looking at how he handles what Grant called grossies or undesirables, that's really what kind of interested me, was getting past the regular cuts of meat for things that I've never really cooked before, but I would be interested in. Like, I've worked with liver, I've worked a little bit with heart, but I haven't really got into some of the other ones. Sweetbread, I was introduced by a chef I worked with several years ago, but again, that's not something that has continued afterwards. It's nowhere I've worked that serves sweetbreads after that.
Nice. And what about White Heat?
White Heat, I just really enjoyed. I don't know. I think the most memorable few things that I took from him was his pasta recipe, because I used his pasta recipe was probably one of the easiest to follow along, and then his take on peaches melba, where he does the spun sugar over the top of the ladle and then uses that as the
sugar cage,
to crown up.
Yes, that's my favorite dessert in the whole book.
And so I've never done the peach melja, but I have done the sugar cage. I did a 50th wedding anniversary at the nursing home, and she asked for cheesecake, and then I surrounded her cheesecake with just that lattice of spun sugar like that, and she thought it was the greatest thing ever.
It is the coolest
It just
garnish
looks-
ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for people that don't know what we're talking about, it's literally like, it's called a sugar cage, but it's literally a dome of sugar that you maybe put on a ladle that you've like buttered or oiled or something, so then you can take it off once it cools. But effectively, it's like a dome of sugar around. And in this book, it's kind of over, I think, honey ice cream with the peach melba, and it's just delicate. And I think Marco Pierre White used to describe his food when he was cooking at Harvey's as like kind of feminine,
Yes.
which, not being sexist for all you crazy people out there, but I kind of love that sentiment in food, like just kind of like delicate, and I don't even know how to describe it, but feminine just seemed like the right word for that, especially that particular garnish.
I think it'd be finding a balance, not just in where they say the fat, heat, salt, and acid, but it's finding that balance in the delicacy and firmness, back and forth. Prince used to sing a cappella in a lot of his songs, and he said it was because he wanted to bring a feminine side into what it was he was doing, so that way you end up with a balance. So to me, that would be that element that you're not just preparing the different types of what they consider to be taste, but you're also now adding in an element of texture. You're adding in that basically that balance that gives it that delicacy to kind of offset that peach that's already firm and kind of.
Yeah, I totally agree. Last question. What's your happiest food memory?
I'd say my happiest, I have two very happy food memories. I'll kind of go back to this one. Well, I'll start with this story. If you've seen Ratatouille, at the very end when the food critic is in there and he takes the bite of the ratatouille and he's instantly drawn back to his childhood. I've only received that compliment 2 times in my entire career. And one of them, I was doing a catering and I had put out tea sandwiches, and I don't remember exactly what salad was in the middle of the tea sandwich, but I had somebody pick it up and he goes, "This reminds me of my mother's." He goes, and as I'm eating them, he goes, "It's just taking me back to when I was a kid." And the second time I was doing another catering and I had made a shrimp canopy. I don't remember exactly what was on it. And one of the guests at the party had picked it up and they were like, "This reminds me of my grandfather because he used to make this," or something similar to it. And so those are the 2 times that I've ever been piqued at food where it's like, oh, I've hit that nerve where it went all the way back to your childhood and you're like, oh, that's instantly bringing me back to a happy point. So
nice. So your happiest food memory is evoking that emotion kind of in other people.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of what you're chasing. I love that. I just had a great meal at Claudine, which is a new restaurant in Providence. And speaking of Thomas Keller, there's 2 chefs there, a husband and a wife, and they met at Per Se, and they've worked there. I think they worked there for 6 or 7 years. But I just got a chance to go eat there. I have a friend that works there as head of beverage, who used to work with me at Little Moss. And I had that moment, that ratatouille moment, let's call it, where I really didn't expect it. It actually caught me off guard, and it made me like a little emotional because it was the caviar supplement on the gluten-free menu. If anyone wants to try it, it was gluten-free menu, not on their like main menu. So good luck. But it was a buckwheat waffle with chicken liver mousse, nice quenelle of caviar on top, and then cotton candy grapes, which were like blanched and peeled. And now you hear those things and you're like, what the fuck is that? Like chicken liver, caviar.
It makes sense to me.
It didn't when I saw it on the menu, but I just got it because, I like caviar. And
I can imagine the sweet, the salty, the savory from that mousse. And
there was something in that mousse, whether it was allspice or nutmeg or some warm spice. And then that with the buckwheat waffle and the caviar. I used to eat lobster at Christmas at my grandmother's house, and we would take the lobster and we would dip it in butter and eat it on club crackers. That was like just what we did every Christmas. I took one bite and it just that spice that was in the mousse, the caviar reminded me of the lobster, the buckwheat waffle, the club cracker. Like they didn't even know what they were doing. Like, but that you couldn't even stop it. That memory just was like brought forth, you know, and that was just like a beautiful plate of food. Have you ever had a moment like that for yourself, eating something?
I do have moments like that. Every so often, I'll eat something that will, and I'm trying to remember, most of the time it's sweets, only because that's what my grandmother cooked. And so I have moments where I'll eat a sweet and it'll take me back to, I remember that time I made like this pie with my grandmother, or I remember the time that we put together this strudel in one time, or so I've had a few moments, but it's not something that's happened to me a lot.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I think that's good though. I think it's supposed to be kind of rare. If it happened every time you ate, it would be, it'd be too much. But when it does happen, it's great. Well, thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
This was amazing. I think you're an amazing dude. Keep doing what you're doing. And yeah, just thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.